The city was cloaked in darkness, save for the sporadic flickers of streetlights that dotted its labyrinthine streets. Vincent Blackwood, an infamous contract killer known for his meticulousness and cold-blooded efficiency, navigated these streets with ease. To him, the city's underbelly was a second home. Vincent's life had been a series of calculated decisions, leading him down a path where morality had no place. He thrived on the thrill of the hunt, the precision of the kill. But recently, something had changed. Shadows seemed to linger longer, whispers danced on the edge of his hearing, and he felt a presence he couldn't shake. One night, after a particularly gruesome job, Vincent returned to his secluded apartment on the outskirts of the city. He stood before the bathroom mirror, scrubbing the blood from his hands. As the water turned crimson and spiraled down the drain, he noticed something that made his blood run cold. In the mirror, behind his reflection, stood a figure, a gaunt, hollow-eyed specter staring back at him. Vincent spun around, but the bathroom was empty. He turned back to the mirror. The figure was gone, but the haunting image had burned itself into his mind. Days turned into weeks, and the apparitions grew more frequent. The ghostly figure began appearing not just in mirrors, but in dark corners, in the periphery of Vincent's vision, and even in his dreams. The relentless presence gnawed at his sanity. Desperate for answers, Vincent sought the help of a reclusive medium, Madame Elara, known for her connections to the spirit world. Her candlelit parlor was filled with the scent of incense and the soft hum of chanted prayers. Madame Elara listened intently as Vincent recounted his encounters. Her eyes, deep with otherworldly knowledge, seemed to pierce through his very soul. "This spirit," she said, "is tethered to you by a grave injustice. To find peace, you must uncover the truth behind its unrest." Vincent's mind raced. He had taken countless lives. Any one of them could harbor a vengeful spirit. But something in the medium's gaze told him this was different. This was personal. Haunted by the medium's words, Vincent delved into his past, combing through old files and records of his assignments. It was during this search that he stumbled upon a name that sent a shiver down his spine: Nathaniel Carter. Nathaniel had been one of Vincent's earliest targets, a seemingly straightforward job. But as Vincent read through the details, long-buried memories surfaced. Nathaniel had been a journalist, digging into the city's corruption, a man with a family, a future, and a fierce determination to unveil the truth. Vincent remembered the night he killed Nathaniel. The man had fought back, begging for his life, pleading for mercy not for himself, but for his wife and unborn child. Vincent had silenced him with a bullet, coldly efficient as always. But Nathaniel's final words, a curse spat through bloodied lips, now echoed in Vincent's ears. "You will never find peace." Determined to put an end to his torment, Vincent tracked down Nathaniel's widow, Emily. She lived in a modest house on the outskirts of the city, a place brimming with sorrow and memories. Emily was initially terrified when Vincent appeared at her door, but he managed to convince her that he sought redemption. Reluctantly, she allowed him in. The house was filled with photographs of Nathaniel, a shrine to a man whose life had been unjustly stolen. Emily spoke of Nathaniel's passion, his unwavering quest for justice, and the void his death had left. As Vincent listened, the weight of his actions pressed down on him like never before. He realized that he had not just ended a life, he had shattered countless others. The ghostly figure of Nathaniel appeared once more, this time in the corner of the room. But now, instead of fear, Vincent felt a deep sense of remorse. He fell to his knees, begging for forgiveness, tears streaming down his face. Madame Alara had given Vincent one last piece of advice: to perform a ritual that could sever the bond between the living and the dead. It required the killer to seek forgiveness from the victim's kin and to atone for his sins in a place of significance. Emily guided Vincent to an old chapel, a place where Nathaniel had often found solace. They stood before the altar, the air thick with tension. Vincent lit a candle and began to speak, his voice trembling with emotion. "I took your life, Nathaniel, and with it, the lives of those who loved you. I see now the pain I've caused, and I seek your forgiveness. Please release me from this torment." As the candle's flame flickered, the ghostly figure of Nathaniel appeared before them, more tangible than ever. Emily gasped, tears welling in her eyes. Nathaniel's spirit looked at Vincent, his expression a mix of sorrow and understanding. "You cannot undo what has been done," Nathaniel's voice echoed through the chapel, "but your remorse is real. I release you from your torment, Vincent. Find a way to do good with the life you still have." With those words, Nathaniel's spirit began to dissipate, a peaceful smile crossing his spectral face. The oppressive weight that had burdened Vincent lifted, replaced by a profound sense of relief. Vincent knew his journey to redemption was far from over, but he had taken the first step. He dedicated his skills to a new purpose, protecting those who couldn't protect themselves, exposing the very corruption he had once been a part of. The city's underbelly still whispered his name, but now it spoke of a man seeking atonement, a shadow working for the light. Thank you for watching this chilling tale of the lost soul of the target killer. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to stay updated with more spine-tingling stories. What do you think about Vincent's path to redemption? Could a killer truly find peace? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And remember, the line between the living and the dead is thinner than you think. Until next time, stay safe, stay scared, and keep watching True Terror Files.
Dr. Mike Taylor was an experienced pathologist at St. Andrew's Hospital. With over 20 years in the field, he had seen everything from gruesome murders to tragic accidents. Nothing surprised him anymore. He had learned to detach himself from the horrors he encountered daily. However, this detachment came at a cost. His wife had left him a year ago, citing his emotional unavailability and obsession with work. Since then, Mike had thrown himself even more into his work, spending countless nights in the cold, sterile environment of the autopsy room. It was a stormy night in late October when Mike received the call. He was about to leave the hospital after a long day when his phone rang. The voice on the other end was that of Detective Laura Henderson, someone he had worked with numerous times. She sounded tense, her voice cutting through the static noise of the storm. "Mike, we've got a case. It's urgent. We need you to perform an autopsy immediately," she said. Mike sighed, grabbing his coat. "Can it wait until morning? I was just about to head home." "Believe me, I wouldn't call you if it wasn't important. The body was found in an abandoned house on the outskirts of town. There are unusual circumstances. Please, Mike, we need you." Her tone left no room for argument. Mike agreed and headed to the morgue. The hospital was eerily quiet, the kind of quiet that made you feel like you were the last person on Earth. As he walked through the dimly lit corridors, he couldn't shake off a sense of foreboding. When he arrived at the morgue, the body was already there, covered with a white sheet. He glanced at the police report left on the table. The deceased was a young woman, identified only as Jane Doe. She had been found in a dilapidated house, her body showing no obvious signs of trauma. The circumstances of her death were a mystery. Mike prepared himself mentally for the task ahead. He had done countless autopsies, but something about this one felt different. He pushed the feeling aside and began his work. Mike started the autopsy in the usual manner, making the Y incision and examining the internal organs. Everything seemed normal until he reached the heart. It was blackened and shriveled, unlike anything he had ever seen. He was puzzled but decided to take a sample for further analysis. As he continued, a sense of unease grew within him. The lights flickered, and he looked up, momentarily distracted. Shrugging it off as a power surge due to the storm outside, he returned to the body. But something was different. The eyes. They were open, staring directly at him. He was certain they had been closed when he started. A shiver ran down his spine, but he dismissed it as his mind playing tricks on him. He closed the eyes and continued his work. However, the feeling of being watched persisted. The phone rang, jolting him from his thoughts. It was the hospital administrator. "Dr. Taylor, we've received new information. That body you're working on belonged to a cult member. Be careful. Some strange things have been reported about them." Mike's heart raced. He glanced at the body, now lying still once more. Cults and rituals were not something he believed in, but the uneasy feeling was hard to ignore. He decided to finish quickly and send the samples to the lab. As he was stitching the body, he heard a whisper. It was faint, almost indistinguishable from the sound of the rain outside. He stopped, holding his breath, listening intently. There it was again, a soft, eerie whisper coming from the body. Panic set in. Mike stepped back, his eyes fixed on the corpse. The whispering grew louder, turning into a low, menacing chant. The lights flickered violently, plunging the room into darkness. In the brief flashes of light, Mike saw the body twitching, the mouth moving as if trying to speak. Desperate to get out, he turned towards the door, but it slammed shut on its own. He was trapped. The air grew thick with the stench of decay and something else, something otherworldly. The whispers were now a cacophony, filling the room with an unbearable noise. Mike backed into a corner, his eyes wide with terror. The body sat up, its eyes glowing with an unnatural light. It stared at him, a sinister smile spreading across its face. "You shouldn't have disturbed me," it said in a voice that was both Jane Doe's and something far more ancient and evil. The last thing Mike remembered was the body lunging at him, and then everything went black. When he awoke, he was in a hospital bed, surrounded by concerned colleagues. They told him he had been found unconscious in the morgue, the body of Jane Doe gone without a trace. The autopsy room was in disarray, as if a violent struggle had taken place. Mike never spoke of what happened that night. He resigned from his position shortly after, unable to shake the terror of that encounter. The autopsy room was sealed off, the incident covered up by the hospital administration. But Mike knew the truth, and it haunted him for the rest of his life. Some say that on stormy nights, if you listen closely, you can still hear the whispers of Jane Doe echoing through the halls of St. Andrew's Hospital, a reminder of the horrors that lurk just beyond our understanding. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. What do you think happened to Dr. Mike? Let me know in the comments below. Stay tuned for part 2. And remember, stay safe out there. You never know what's lurking in the shadows. Months passed, and the incident at the autopsy room faded into a whispered legend among the hospital staff. Detective Laura Henderson, however, couldn't let it go. She had seen the fear in Mike's eyes, heard the tremor in his voice when he spoke about that night. Determined to find out what had truly happened, she began her own investigation. Laura visited the abandoned house where Jane Doe had been found. The place was a crumbling wreck, reeking of mildew and decay. She combed through the rooms, searching for any clues that might explain the mysterious death. In one of the rooms, she found strange symbols etched into the walls, symbols that sent a chill down her spine. She took photos and sent them to a friend who specialized in occult studies. His response was immediate and alarming. The symbols were part of an ancient ritual meant to bind and control malevolent spirits. According to him, the ritual had likely backfired, resulting in Jane Doe's death and possibly unleashing something far worse. Determined to learn more, Laura dug into the history of the house and its former occupants. she discovered that it had once been the home of a secretive cult known as the Children of the Black Sun. The cult was notorious for its dark rituals and had been disbanded after a series of mysterious disappearances. Laura's investigation led her to an old, forgotten archive in the basement of the town library. There, she found records detailing the cult's activities and their ultimate downfall. According to the documents, the cult had attempted to summon a powerful entity, but something had gone terribly wrong. The ritual had unleashed a vengeful spirit that had wiped out the cult members. Connecting the dots, Laura realized that Jane Doe had likely been a modern-day member of the cult, attempting to revive its dark practices. Her death had not been a simple accident, but the result of a ritual gone awry, and whatever had been summoned now roamed free. Mike Taylor tried to move on with his life, but the events of that night haunted him. He couldn't escape the nightmares or the feeling of being watched. Despite his best efforts to forget, the whispers followed him, growing louder with each passing day. One evening, as he sat alone in his apartment, the whispers intensified. They seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Desperate for relief, Mike turned on every light in the house, but the oppressive darkness seemed to press in on him, suffocating him. In a moment of clarity, he realized that the only way to end this torment was to confront it. Gathering his courage, he returned to St. Andrew's Hospital. The building was dark and deserted, the storm outside mirroring the turmoil within him. He made his way to the sealed-off autopsy room, his heart pounding with fear and determination. He pried open the door, stepping into the cold, silent room. The air was thick with the stench of decay, and the faint whispers began again, growing louder as he moved closer to the table where Jane Doe had been. "Why have you come back?" a voice hissed, sending shivers down his spine. "I need to end this," Mike replied, his voice shaking. "What do you want?" The room grew colder, and the ghostly figure of Jane Doe materialized before him, her eyes glowing with an unnatural light. "You disturbed the ritual. You must complete it to set me free." Mike felt a surge of dread. He had no knowledge of rituals or the occult, but he knew he had no choice. Following the whisper's guidance, he gathered the necessary items from the hospital's storage rooms: candles, chalk, and various herbs. He returned to the autopsy room and began to draw the symbols he had seen in Laura's photos, praying he was doing it correctly. As he lit the candles and placed them around the room, the whispers intensified, guiding him through the steps. The temperature dropped further, and the lights flickered ominously. Mike could feel the presence growing stronger, pressing down on him with an almost tangible force. "Complete the circle," the voice commanded. With trembling hands, Mike finished the last symbol and stepped back, watching as the candle's flames flickered violently. The room filled with a low, ominous chant, echoing off the walls and reverberating through his bones. The ghostly figure of Jane Doe floated above the autopsy table, her eyes fixed on Mike. "You have done well. Now, the final step." "What is it?" Mike asked, his voice barely a whisper. "Blood. Your blood," she replied, her voice cold and devoid of emotion. "You must give a part of yourself to close the circle and end this." Mike hesitated, fear gripping his heart, but he knew he had no other choice. Taking a scalpel from the nearby table, he made a shallow cut on his palm, letting the blood drip onto the center of the circle. The symbols began to glow, pulsing with an eerie light. As the last drop of blood fell, a blinding flash of light filled the room, and a powerful gust of wind extinguished the candles. The whispers ceased, replaced by an oppressive silence. When Mike opened his eyes, the ghostly figure was gone, and the room felt lighter, as if a great weight had been lifted. Exhausted and trembling, Mike collapsed to the floor, relief washing over him. He had done it. He had ended the nightmare. Days passed, and the oppressive presence that had haunted Mike was gone. He felt a sense of peace for the first time in months. He returned to his routine, trying to rebuild his life and put the past behind him. However, the memory of that night lingered, a dark shadow in the recesses of his mind. Detective Laura Henderson continued her investigation, determined to ensure that the cult's dark practices were fully eradicated. She uncovered more about the rituals and the history of the Children of the Black Sun, piecing together the puzzle of Jane Doe's death and the events that followed. Her findings revealed that the cult had splintered into several small groups, each trying to resurrect the old ways. Jane Doe had been one of many, part of a dangerous network that spanned the country. Laura knew that the battle was far from over, but with Mike's help, they had taken a crucial step in stopping the spread of darkness. Mike and Laura formed an unlikely partnership, united by their shared experiences and determination to prevent further tragedies. They worked together, following leads and uncovering more about the cult activities. Their bond grew stronger, forged in the crucible of fear and resolve. Months turned into years, and Mike and Laura made significant progress in their fight against the remnants of the cult. They dismantled several cells and brought many members to justice. However, the core of the cult, the true heart of the darkness, remained elusive. One night, Laura received a tip about a gathering in an old mansion on the outskirts of town. It was said to be a major ritual, one that could unleash untold horrors if completed. She and Mike knew they had to act fast. They arrived at the mansion, the air thick with tension. The building loomed ominously in the darkness, its windows like empty eyes staring into the void. They moved quietly, their flashlights cutting through the gloom as they made their way inside. The interior was a twisted maze of decaying rooms and winding corridors. Strange symbols adorned the walls, and the air was filled with the faint scent of incense. They followed the sound of chanting, growing louder with each step. Finally, they reached a large candlelit chamber. Hooded figures stood in a circle, chanting in a language neither Mike nor Laura understood. At the center of the circle was an altar, and on it lay a young woman, bound and unconscious. Mike and Laura exchanged a glance, nodding in silent agreement. They burst into the room, guns drawn, shouting for the cultists to freeze. The chanting stopped, and the figures turned towards them, their eyes gleaming with malice. A fierce struggle ensued. Mike and Laura fought bravely, but they were outnumbered. Just when it seemed they were about to be overwhelmed, the young woman on the altar awoke. With a strength born of desperation, she broke free of her bonds and joined the fight. Together, they managed to overpower the cultists. The leader, a man with piercing eyes and an aura of pure malevolence, sneered at them as he was subdued. "You think you've won?" he spat. "The darkness cannot be stopped. It will rise again." Mike and Laura ignored his threats, focusing on securing the scene and ensuring the young woman's safety. As they left the mansion, the first light of dawn breaking through the storm clouds, they felt a sense of accomplishment and hope. They had struck a significant blow against the darkness, but they knew their work was far from over. With the cult leader behind bars and the young woman safe, Mike and Laura continued their mission, more determined than ever. They knew the fight against darkness was a never-ending battle, but they were prepared to face whatever came their way. Mike found a renewed sense of purpose in his work, no longer haunted by the whispers of the past. He and Laura grew closer, their bond deepening into something more profound. Together, they faced the unknown, united in their quest to protect the innocent and prevent the rise of evil. As the years went by, they trained others to join their cause, building a network of dedicated individuals committed to stopping the spread of dark rituals and protecting those who could not protect themselves. The legacy of the Children of the Black Sun faded into obscurity, their influence diminished by the relentless efforts of Mike, Laura, and their allies. The autopsy room at St. Andrew's Hospital remained sealed, a silent reminder of the horrors that had once transpired within its walls. But for Mike and Laura, it was not a place of fear. It was a testament to their resilience, a symbol of their victory over the darkness. And as they stood together, watching the sun rise on a new day, they knew that as long as they had each other, they could face whatever challenges lay ahead. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. What do you think happened to Dr. Mike and Detective Laura after they stopped the cult? Let me know in the comments below. And remember, stay safe out there. You never know what's lurking in the shadows.